Okay, we're back on. I'm going to ask you about a few more films, starting with Die Laughing.
De-locking was. We called it, the people, my assistant and I called it de-locking because we tried to give it some presence, some importance. We kind of imagined that it was a German art film called De-locking. But it was not one of my favorite movies, to be sure. But it was a career. It was the start. It was the first time director who is an editor who has done. I'm trying desperately to remember his name right now. I've got so many names
Werner?
I have to go through. Jeff Werner, yeah, that's right, and that helped us with the de-locking. We thought it was Jeff Werner. Jeff Werner was directed de-locking, and Jeff Werner was wrote. Jeff Werner is like a trailer editor, that sort of thing. He's done a lot of publicity things for movies, trailers and shorts and stuff like that. And he got a chance through Barbara Streisand and her boyfriend at the time, who I can't recall, was the producer on the show, to direct his first directed. And so, in that regard, I enjoyed working on it, and because I enjoyed doing whatever I could to help him. But I don't think the movie helped him. The movie was probably a dismal failure, and it deserved to be, because it was overly repetitious. I think that he was getting a lot of pressure from people who shouldn't have been pressuring him to do it. And then it got to the point where a lot of scenes were left out. So we then had to come up with some narration to say things like, why are we at the circus? You know, some offstage voice that would set the scene. So I don't think it advanced my career any.
Did it hurt your career? If something does not work, do you think it really hurts your career? Or
no, I think what hurts my career is large periods of absence. That's what I'm going through now. I'm retired, but I don't like to think of myself as retired because I don't want to be retired. What happened was, like in our business, they don't throw a party and give you a gold watch. They just don't call you anymore, you know. And I haven't been called since a picture that turned out rather poorly. The last one I did that I had a terrible time on, and that was Premonition. And that was with a director who thought of me as a hack, and I thought of him as an imposter, and we never got along at all. And he didn't listen to me, and I apparently didn't listen to him. I did some things that I shouldn't have done because he was very anal retentive, and he used to put little color codes as to the things he wanted me to use and not use. And I didn't notice those. I didn't pay that much attention to him. So he was angry right from the get-go when he saw that I didn't do that, when he saw the first cut. And so basically one of the things I say to directors when I start is I say, now you can tell me everything you want me to do and I will do it. You can tell me every single cut to make and I will do it exactly the way you want to. But you will lose whatever creative contribution that I might have to make to the movie because I'm just following directions. If you let me bring something to you, you can always take it back the way you want it. But if you don't listen or let me put my input into it, then you may be missing something that's fairly good. You know, you never know. And he was one of the ones who didn't listen. You know, who didn't want my input. Really, he wanted to do it his way. So that was my last experience, and I haven't even seen that movie in its entirety since it was recut after I left, because it gives me the chills. And it was the only movie. I mean, it wasn't that bad a movie. The movie was okay, I guess, but it was the only movie I asked not be put in my reel when they had the reel for me for the presentation for the Career Achievement Award. I asked Doug Eibold, who cut it, not to use that movie. So.
Going back, Cujo, 1983.
Cujo was a lot of fun. I enjoyed. We were on location up in Santa Rosa, and I think as I recall, Cujo was originally directed and edited by someone else, and they brought Louis Teague in, who directed it, and hired me, and so it was a switch, and then we started all over again. But working with Louis was fun. He had a good appreciation of what I was doing and what he was doing, and it's where I developed a skill of learning how to really scare people. Not, I mean, it's very simple. You're just the skill is to never have something happen where the people expect it to happen. That has to happen either at a different time or from a different direction. And as simple as that. You expect like the rabid dog is you're looking at a window and you expect the rabid dog to be coming through the window, and it comes right here. That's all that is.
How were you able to do that? I mean, what did you have the footage? Did you work with the director to say, you know what, it'd be really great if you had the shot?
Oh no, I learned it from the director. I mean, he did it. He shot it that way. He shot it a couple of ways. But there's it was funny. I took my son to see the movie. He was quite younger at that time, and he was very proud and masculine, and he was saying, "You can't scare me. Nothing can make you're not going to scare me." And there's one scene in the movie where the dog comes through a window or something, and I think he levitated about a foot out of his seat. But that's mainly what that movie was about: is a lot of booze, a lot of scare stuff. But it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Did you get to work with Stephen King at all?
Who?
Stephen King, the writer of that?
Stephen King. No, I never met him. Never met him. I never have met him my entire life. I'd love to.
No Way Out.
No Way Out. That was a turning point in my career, because that's where I met Mace Neufeld. That's where I met Kevin Costner. And Roger Donaldson, who was very helpful in my career later on. And it was a good movie, I thought. I thought it was a very good movie. It was good material to work with. And subsequently, Kevin asked me to cut Dances with Wolves based on our relationship that we started with No Way Out. So he came into the cutting room a couple of times, which is kind of taboo. I always got nervous running anything for an actor. You don't want to do that. That's not in the editorial guidelines. But I managed to work it out with him and everything. And he later on, it paid off by him hiring me to do Dances with Wolves.
Did you have any idea that he was eventually going to direct?
No, I just thought he was an actor. As a matter of fact, I thought that I had never heard of him before that movie. He'd done things before that movie, but I had never paid any attention to it. To me, that was a Gene Hackman movie. It was, but it was anyway. It was a good movie.
You mentioned Kevin Costner. What about Mace Neufeld, and how did that relationship start, and what?
Well, it started with that movie, and he realized that the basic thing that Mace realizes about me is that I put a lot of work into a first cut. I don't expect, when I finish a first cut, as a matter of fact, the term rough cut always is abrasive to me, because by the time I finish a first cut, it isn't rough anymore. The only thing that's rough about it is it hasn't been scored. I'll put temp music in it, I'll put temp effects in it, and I will present a first cut in the condition that I expected that I would be happy to release it on the screen. and not wait for the director to tell me what to do. A lot of editors, I think, they just kind of rough it in, and they wait for a director to tell them what. So I figure that by the time I finish the first cut, it's halfway there, at least. And Mace understands that, and that's what he keeps telling people. And so he's gotten me a lot of work over the years. But they're mainly with people who work with him, you know. But, I mean, like Phil Robinson, when I worked with him on the Sum of All Fears, Mace produced that. And I'm sure he recommended me to Phil, and Phil didn't have any idea of who to have. So, you know, it was like that with a lot of people.
Well, since you're giving them such a wonderful first cut, in terms of time, does it take you longer than other editors, or are you just faster? How does that work?
I try and get as much time as I can. I'm not, you know, a lot of people are very proud that they're up with camera, so to speak. That they, that term is I've heard used a lot. I'm right up with camera, so meaning that it's shot the next day, the previous day, and it's cut the following day, and that doesn't mean anything to me. I realize I can't get too far behind. I can't sleep in the mornings. I have to get out there and work. But if I slip behind camera by a week, it's fine. I generally try and get 2 weeks between the end of the cut, between the end of the shoot, and the time I have to present it to the director. Generally, I'm no further behind than that. And if I am, then I'm working night and day to catch up. But I can generally talk the director into taking a little vacation after the shoot. They're so burned out by that time, they're not eager to go on anyway, you know. So, you know, just I try and get a little breather in there, so I can make a nice presentation out of the first cut.
Cocktail.
Cocktail. What about Cocktail? Roger Donaldson directed it. We shot it in Toronto, but there were several scenes that were shot in Jamaica. The nicest thing about that is that I was able to go to Jamaica with them. It made the studio very unhappy, because part of my contract said that I can go on location. But I didn't have anything to do in Jamaica, so I didn't even have a cutting setup. I kind of supervised the fact that the movement of film back and forth to make sure we had film there for dailies and everything and I was dealing with some Rastafarian down there who was half swacked on ganja all the time, and he was lying in the street, and I was just making sure that things happened. But the head of Disney post-production got really angry that I had taken advantage, in his eyes, of going on location, because it was so much more expensive to send me to Jamaica, especially for nothing, to do nothing, than it was to send me to Toronto. But I went both places, and the movie itself. Ended up differently than it was written. The writer it ended up as this kind of silly puff piece about bartenders flipping bottles and didn't mean anything. But it was written about the choices that people make in their lives and how they affect the rest of their lives. And it was written the way it was really originally written. I can't remember it exactly, but the Tom Cruise character realizes that he's going in the wrong direction with his life, and he quits. He goes off and does something else. He makes something of his life. He doesn't just keep going on flipping bottles to music. And it went out, and the audience perceived that on the preview as that he was kind of a loser. And they wanted him to be a winner. They wanted him to keep flipping bottles, I guess, somehow. I don't know. But so that's what happened. Disney is a great believer in previews. They previewed that picture until the sprocket holes wore out on it. It was, we previewed it one time, three times in one weekend, or 4 times in one weekend. We would change the ending they had a big thing about how the movie ended. So we had little rolls of ending. We would tack them on and run it for an audience. Then we tack it on again and run it for an audience. And I hated that because I thought what I call the screw-up factor was pretty big in doing something like that. You know, you might throw it out of sync or whatever. But anyway, that's what I remember about Cocktail. That it ended up, like I say, not the way it started. And I think it would have been a better picture had they not eliminated the moral aspect of it or the preaching out of it a little bit, you know.
We talked about Dances with Wolves a bit, but talk about winning the Oscar for that.
Oh my heavens! It was what a great moment for that. Winning the Oscar was one of the greatest moments of my life. People who poo-poo the Oscar, I don't know. I don't think they get it. The fact is that the Oscar is the Pulitzer Prize of motion pictures. It's like it's difficult, for example, to pick the best actor or the best actress or something like that, because they're all good. It was difficult for me to feel that I deserved it. As a matter of fact, Thelma Schoonmaker was up for Goodfellas that same time, and the editor of Ghost was up at the same time, and they were all good. They were all well edited. I felt good about Dances with Wolves because I felt that it was a movie that grabbed the audience's imagination probably more than the others. Goodfellas was a brutal movie about gangsters fighting and killing one another, and so it's not as much fun as to watch a white man turn into an Indian, you know. That movie captured the people's imagination. There were people who would come up to me and tell me they'd seen the movie 40, 50 times. They'd seen the movie as much as I had, you know. It's amazing. And so that made me feel like I had a good chance. But I told my wife at the Oscars, I said, hang on to me, because people have been telling me I'm going to win, and if I don't win, I'm liable to stand up anyway. So pull me down, will you? Don't let me stand up. But I was so nervous up on stage. I screwed up. That night was our 30th wedding anniversary, my wife and my 30th wedding anniversary, and I failed to mention her. I didn't mention her at all. I didn't mention any member of my family. What happened was they tell you they want that you're only supposed to take like a minute and a half or 2 minutes and a half or whatever it is for your acceptance speech. But they don't tell you that there's a TV monitor facing the stage in the audience the size of New Jersey that starts flashing out of time, out of time, out of time. And that just blew me away. I saw that and I lost, my script went right out the window. And I did the wrong thing. I tried to remember the speech that I had memorized instead of just remembering the people and saying whatever came to my mind. So I was standing up there just totally lost. And I had what I can remember now. It was so important. What I said what I wanted to say was I want to give thanks finally to Kevin Costner, who molded us all into a unit and gave us a picture that we can remember for the rest of our lives. Thank you, Kevin, for for trusting me with your firstborn, which was a very sort of eloquent, way of saying it. What I ended up saying, and finally to Kevin Costner, whom I owe a lot. that was it. It is a lot of pressure up there on that stage if it pops into your mind that 1 billion people are looking at you on the stage, it really blows you away.
I expect all was forgiven, though, right?
Yeah. Well, I took out a half a page ad in the trade papers for Kevin and my wife, but I only finally got a chance to make it up to her for not mentioning her at this award that I just got. I mentioned her very, very carefully this time.
Now, in terms of the editorial aspect of that film, is there something that you did that you think really pushed it over the edge for the win?
Each picture sets its own tone. Dances with Wolves was a waltz. It was beautifully, it had beautiful scenery in it, and it would be a crime to overcut it. It had a magnificence about it that required that you go with it. And so I didn't do it, it did it. The movie did it, you know. I just listened to it, paid attention to it. The thing that I'm the most proud of in Dances is a totally non-editorial contribution that I made. Kevin wanted me around at the beginning all the time because it was his first film and he wanted advice. And so finally, but he knew what he wanted, and it finally became apparent that I was just a fifth wheel on the set, and so I needed to go back and start cutting. But I remember there's a scene where Wind in His Hair rides up all covered with war paint, and his first confrontation with Lieutenant Dunbar, and he's got his spear and he's yelling, don't you know I'm not scared of you and I hate you and all that kind of stuff. And Dunbar has got a gun and he's pointing it at him, but he doesn't know what. Neither one of them really want to shoot each other or stab one another, but they just want to scare one another. And finally, Wind in His Hair lets out this blood-curdling scream and turns and rides away. And Costner, in the original concept, drops and falls and faints. He just faints right on the spot. And I said to him, I said, now this does not feel real to me. This feels, if you just fainted like that, it would feel like Keystone Cops to me. I said, I remember I had a similar experience where when I was a little kid, I was driving, not a little kid, but I was just old enough to drive, and in high school, and we were playing ditch one another or whatever, chasing, things that you hope that your teenage kids don't do, but they all do. And I tried to take a corner that was wet, and I slid across the street sideways up into a service station, and came to a stop right next to the gas pumps. Another 3 feet, and I would have gone right through the gas pumps and blown up everything, And I realized the realization of that took place, and I got up out of the car, and I started to walk, and my knees just buckled. I couldn't. My knees were just shaking so much, and I said, use that as an example. I said, you ought to be in control of yourself. You're not just kind of like dead when he rides away. You're just going to walk back and go to work, but you can't do it because your legs go out from under you, and eventually you faint. So that moment, if you remember it or if you see it again, that moment I'm very proud of because that moment was mine, my direction. So other than that, editing is editing. Editing is just paying attention to who's important and what's important and who's, and trying to get the best, trying to siphon out the best moments of the movie so that there's nothing left in the can that should be on the screen. That's all.
You use the word waltz to describe
waltz,
the film.
Yeah.
Do you feel kind of musicality to the way you
I do. I don't think da 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 bump bump. No, but it's a graceful piece. As a matter of fact, at the end, when we were scoring it, John Barry wrote, I always love going to the score because it's the first real influx of creativity you have into the movie since the movie's been shot. This is all new. He sits down in front of a 60-piece, 80-piece orchestra and waves his baton, and suddenly new creation is coming into the movie. And it's wonderful. And he did a beautiful job and a beautiful score, but he got the buffalo hunt all wrong the first time. He wrote a waltz. So when you have buffalo charging across the desert and you have Indians chasing them and shooting them and they're falling and all that kind of stuff, you don't have a waltz. It's just wrong. It was just because he was overtaken with the beauty of the whole thing. And so I remember Kevin and Jim Wilson, who was his producer, were out going to get coffee at that time. And I ran panicked out to him. I said, now, I can't tell the orchestra or the composer what to do, but I want you to go in there, if you possibly can, and tell him to do the same thing with a little rewrite in 4/4 time, a march. Make the same thing a march, and you'll be much happier. And he looked at me like I had a paper head, like I didn't know what I was talking about. What am I doing talking about, John Barry is a highly recognized musician. And he didn't do it. And so we had the waltz for the longest time. Eventually, we had to go back in, and they rewrote the whole thing, and they made it into a march. But it was at a great deal, a march, sort of. It was with a great deal of expense and a long time later. But that's, if you listen to pieces that are militant in flavor, like, or that are heroic in flavor, they're always marches. Like dum ba dum bum bum ba dum bum ba dum bum. That's the march. They're all like that, and it's kind of like if you have a heroic moment, you have to have a march. Not necessarily, but.
What did the Oscar win do for your career? Did it change?
Pardon me?
What did the Oscar win do for your career? Did it change what kind of things you were getting?
The Oscar did for my career. It doubled my salary, for one thing, and it was, but it was more than that. I tell you what it did for me. The very vivid example. I had a very bad habit that I had since I was 3 years old, biting my fingernails. I used to bite my fingernails till they bled. As you see now, I have perfectly normal fingernails. And that happened by winning the Oscar. My mother, when I was young, used to put all kinds of goop on my fingers, trying to keep me from biting my fingernails. Didn't work. I used to bite them till they hurt. And the recognition that I was accepted, that other people liked my work, that I was okay, like Fields, what's her first name? Can't think of it. When she said, "You like me, you really like me."
Sally Fields.
Sally Fields, that's it. She had the right of it. It's a sense that people out there appreciate what you're doing. And I never got that sense from my mother. Or I did from my father a little bit, but you're with your mother so often. And so from my mother, I always got the sense that I was doing everything wrong. And that I carried with me. It gets into your head until I won the Academy Award. And without trying, my fingers began to grow nails, one at a time. There was still some I would pick on, but eventually I had an index finger, and I had they began to grow, and pretty soon I was using nail clippers, which I never had owned a pair in my entire life, and that was totally contributed to Dances with Wolves Oscar.
Wow! Did you in the cutting room? Did you have a lack of confidence as well, or is it?
I always do. A little less now. A little less since I won the Oscar and everything, but I always talk to myself. I have an internal conversation that says you're really pretty good. You're okay. That was a good cut. That's I keep congratulating myself on this stuff. That's not bad. That's bad. We have, but I kind of in my head I'm talking to myself, telling myself that I'm okay. It sounds kind of insane when I say it, and it doesn't go on exactly like that. But that's more what I do. It's closer, the closest I can get to describing how I motivate myself.
So after that win, after that infusion of confidence in a way, did that change the way that you approached your?
No. I still say that. A cake is a cake, You don't cook it like you do a pot roast. Everything is different. Every movie is different. You can't apply the same rules to everything. So I don't have editorial rules. I just approach everything as if it were brand new. The first piece of work I've ever done in my life. Now, along the line, I've learned a lot of things not to do, and I've learned a lot of things you can do that I didn't think you could do. But those are like technical moments that I use as tools through the movie. But as a whole approach, I don't maintain the same sort of Neil Travis vision of how a movie should be. I don't bend it to suit myself in any way at all. I try and bend myself to suit the movie.
Moving on, Patriot Games, 1992.
Patriot Games. For some reason or other, oh yeah, okay. First of the Tom Clancy movies. Yeah, that was again Mace Neufeld. Got to go to London. What can I tell you that's interesting about Patriot Games? I remember one of the things that was interesting about working on Patriot Games is Philip Noyce was the director, and I was working on the montage then, a very brand new electronic editing system, which used beta cassettes. They had like 20 beta cassettes, I can't remember the number, but 20 beta cassettes that you would put into these cassette readers, and then you could only cut like 20 minutes at a time, because that's all the cassette held. And they all had the same information on them. They had all the dailies repeated again, over and over and over again on these cassettes. And what the computer would do was tell one cassette to wind down to so-and-so and wait, and another cassette to play this scene, and another cassette to play the sound to go with that scene. And then, there was constantly humming and buzzing going on in the other room while I was asking, while I was cutting. And Noyce liked to work at night. He would come in after the shoot and work with me. And I'm exhausted, and I know he is, but he just kind of works on adrenaline. And he came in and was talking to me one time when I was changing. You can only run 20 minutes at a time, so after every 20 minutes you have to get up, go in the other room, take out all those cassettes, and put in 20 new ones, whatever it is, whatever the number was. And he came into the other room with me, and all the time I was changing the cassettes, he's with me, following me as I'm going down and coming up and going down and coming up, and he's constantly keeping up this prattle going on while I was working. And I went back into the other room, and I didn't even think it was possible, but I pressed some button that I shouldn't have pressed, and I erased the entire memory, erased everything. So that was it for that night, and we then had to send it to Maryland or someplace where they were finally able to, from latent images somehow, get things back together again somehow. I don't know anything. I don't know that much about computers, but had they not been able to do that, we would have lost a lot of what he shot. Well, we could have. I didn't erase the negative. We would have had to reprint. We would have had to reprint hundreds of thousands of feet of film in order to get back where we were.
So they would transfer all of that to beta, or how did that?
Yeah, they transferred the film to beta cassettes, and that's what I worked on.
Oh. How long was that system in use? The montage system.
Quite a while. The montage was the way to go there for when I first started in electronic editing. They tried to talk me into taking the montage with me to South Dakota to do Dances with Wolves. And I resisted on that because, first of all, I didn't really know how to do it. And I had made a deal on Dances with Wolves where I would provide all the editorial equipment. And so I had a garage full of editorial equipment ready to go, ready to be picked up by the truck. And I would have had to change that all out, plus losing some income. Because Dances with Wolves was a non-union picture, and it got me into a lot of trouble with the union, but I didn't really know, because I had a corporation, that I would get into trouble. I figured what I could do was be paid in a lump sum, which included enough money for my assistant, for the sound effects editors, for everybody that was involved, for the equipment, for me, for everything, and that I would pay out of my corporation. I'd make a payroll and make contributions to the union for all of the people who were working with me, which I did. 2/3 of the way through the picture, when the union came down on me like a ton of bricks, and they told me that I couldn't do that because I was not a union signator, major studio kind of entity. I was just a personal service corporation. And they threatened to sue me, and I threatened to bring a countersuit for discrimination against them, and it all went away. But there was nobody that was ever really happy in the union that I worked on Dances with Wolves, and it was all a total mistake, like I said, because I thought that I could pay the union benefits for my crew. And I was wrong.
Was there any chance that you'd be thrown out of the union for that?
Oh, they rattled their sabers for a while, but not really. It's interesting, this little side effects, because after this award, the Career Achievement Award, Anita Brandt Burgoyne, who was an editor, whose father, Buzz Burgoyne, I don't know whether I'm pronouncing that right, but Burgoyne, was an editor also. She sent me a congratulatory note saying, seeing if I remembered her, because I only had one lunch with her a long time ago, and I do remember it. And she said she wrote an essay for the editorial magazine about Dances with Wolves and how it changed her life and how it made her want to become an editor. She thought it was so beautiful that she went, and she sent me a copy of this essay, but she told me that the union would not put it in the newspaper because it was a non-union movie. They refused to publish it.
Oh.
So I think sometimes the union gets a little sticky about that kind of stuff because they could gain more union people if they were less stringent about, they could ease into it a little bit more rather than building brick walls and things of that nature, I think.
Well, going back to Patriot Games, and then you also did Clear and Present Danger. Was that also on the montage system, or?
Yeah, I can't remember. Let's see, Clear and Present Danger.
That was another Jack Ryan.
I was probably on the Lightworks by that time, which another generation of them. But Lightworks was much more usable. I mean, it's like an Avid. It was just a different system, but it is as fast as an Avid, and it was fun to use, and then it was okay. But Clear and Present Danger, I just remember working on it, and I remember Philip Noyce again directing it, and we always spoke each other's language. We got along very well together. I like working with Philip. I'd like to be working with Philip right now. He's doing a movie in New York, thing called Salt, which he cannot hire me for because New York has this tax break system, kickback sort of thing, but they require that you hire New York personnel in order to do it. And so he tried 3 times to get me on that picture, even to just come in and help, and he couldn't achieve it. The first time I couldn't have done it because he called me when I was right in the middle of a vacation. I was on a trip and I wasn't home. But the other 2 times he couldn't do it anyway. So, but I enjoy working with Philip. It's Clear and Present Danger was an easy film. One of the reasons I enjoy working with Philip because he knows how to shoot a movie. He shoots a movie where you don't have things you have to work around. He shoots a movie like it goes together. It's meant to hold to one another. He knows how to do it. He knows how to shoot interesting angles and interesting stuff that connect. And so, as far as anecdotal things about that, I can't remember anything that to help.
That's okay. 2003, Terminator 3. The Rise of the
Terminator
Machines.
3. I thought it was going to be a hoot. I thought working on Terminator 3 was going to be just a kick in the pants because, nobody takes it seriously, and it would be just kind of fun, and Arnold Schwarzenegger doing his thing. And it turned out, what I finally discovered is that looking at Terminator 1, 2, 3 is a hoot. Working on it is not such a hoot because of the visual effects required. I'm not a big fan of visual effects. Now movies are all visual effects. I mean, you look at Avatar, it's like I don't think that there's a scene in the movie that doesn't have computer generated images in it. And so we spent so much time talking about explosions and bubbles and sparks and things in that movie that it just kind of, I felt useless. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go back to my machine and try and make the movie better. But Industrial Light and Magic up in San Francisco, we had a feed back and forth, a satellite feed, and so we could sit in the two rooms and talk to one another over a television. And pardon me, the director was talking to the people up there, and I was just kind of like a lump. I didn't have anything to do. Once in a while, I'd stick my oar in and so forth. But I always felt that, why do I forget his name, the director name? Jonathan Mostow. I always thought that Jonathan was leading him in the wrong direction, and I think he did it on purpose. I think that was just his way to work. He was spending a lot of the studio's money, but I think it was just his system. He would tell him to do something, and I would go, what did you just say? Which was just like going opposite of the way I thought it should go. And it happened so often that I began to think, well, he's doing this on purpose. He just wants to run him around the block to just see what it would look like the other way. And I mean, you do heavy-duty visual effects, it costs a lot of money. And I don't know, I suppose I shouldn't have been thinking about how much money he spent, but he never just kind of made up his mind and stuck with it. And that's sort of my way. What I do is I make up my mind how I'm going to put a film together. I make an adjustment after I see it, and that's it. Not that I'm intransigent, that I won't make a change for somebody else, but I won't make a change for myself because that's the way I wanted to put it together the first time. You see, that's the vision that I had of the movie. And he didn't have any. He was just trying everything. Try it this way and try it that way, and oh my God! After a while, it was just mind-boggling. It was very, very hard.
Do you think it's partly because the electronics have gotten so much faster that?
Yeah, I think it is, and I think he's a writer, too, and so I think writers are more used to working in that way, trying things out, just testing the waters. It's just his mode of working, and it drove me crazy.
I have done that. You won an Emmy Award in 2007 for the 79th Annual Academy Awards. Was that for that piece that you were talking about
I was up
before?
for an Emmy. I didn't win any Emmy. I was for some strange reason I got to go to the Emmy Awards because I cut that tiny little piece that I said that more people have seen that than War and Peace.
That's the speech. Wow.
Yeah, it was just a tiny little piece, and I got to go. I guess I was nominated or something for it. Why, I have no idea, because it was a 30-second silly little piece that didn't amount to anything, and I didn't think they gave Emmys for stuff like that.
What are your current projects?
Current project? hunting gophers on my property and and trying to keep the fruit trees from overgrowing. And no, I don't have anything. I haven't worked on anything since Premonition. I would love to. I'm retired, but not because of choice. I just haven't found anything. I have turned down a couple of projects, and like I say, Philip Noyce called me to work on his, and I just couldn't do it. I was in an impossible situation to go back right then. He wanted me now, and so basically I live on 12 acres up in Royal Grande near San Luis Obispo, and I tend to that. That's about it.
That's not bad. Talk a little bit about, from the time that you began your career till now, about the technology and how things have changed just in the business of what you do.
I walked onto the Paramount lot in 1959, a long time ago, 11 years ago. And I arrived simultaneously with the Butt Splicer. The Butt Splicer was it was a new invention for the editors then. And also magnetic tape, magnetic sound. They were used to cutting optical sound. And so it's come a long way since then. I mean, to the editors that I worked with were always very suspicious about butt splicers. They thought that should be used only for sound. And they were very suspicious about magnetic sound itself because they couldn't see the sound. In optical sound, you can actually see the striations. You can see where a word starts and where, it's just like a graph. And they couldn't see it, so they didn't like it. So that was the kind of, and it's the same sort of reaction has repeated itself through history, like when the first flatbed editing system came in, everybody was very suspicious about that. And then the first electronic editing system came in, everybody's suspicious about that. It takes a long time for things to get in place. And from where I started, spending hours and hours in the splicing room, scraping the emulsion off of film and putting glue on it and gluing it together and doing it again, pulling paper clips off the film where the editor has put on and throwing them at a target on the wall and all that stuff. It's come a long, long way. And that's about it. I mean, we're up to Avid, and I have no idea where we're going to go after this. I mean, I think the envelope is going to be pushed a lot more. 3D is going to be a big deal. Avatar is very, very. Why can't I remember the name of the director of Avatar?
James Cameron.
James Cameron. James is a pioneer. I mean, he was a pioneer. He's a pioneer in so many different ways. Technologically, and I think he's going to get way behind 3D, and I think 3D will eventually have 3D television, and we'll have it's the next wave, it's the next revolution in the future, I think.
What are your feelings on digital versus optical capturing of the images?
I don't have much of an opinion about it. I'm of the generation that I've always liked the look of film. I've liked the softness of film. Film has a blending quality, which I like. Even if it's in perfect rock-sharp focus, it still has this softness about it that I haven't seen repeated digitally. I'm sure there are ways you can do it. This gentleman behind you probably knows how to do it, but other than that one thing, I think digital is the way. I mean, That's the only thing that I feel I hold out reservations for, is the soft, sort of elegant look of film. But digitally, you project film on the screen and it jiggles. You project a digital image on the screen and it's rock solid. You can walk right up and put your nose on the screen and there ain't nothing moving there, And so that I think is a tremendous advantage. The focus is just like hyper focus. High definition is just like unbelievable. I sometimes watch programs at home on my television just because I like the definition of it. It's so great, and I'm thoroughly other than that almost undescribable softness of film. I think digital is great.
Over the years, how would you keep track of your sequences of the film strips? Did you have a specific?
My assistants. I didn't keep track of them. I could keep track, obviously, of overall sequences of what I cut and what I haven't cut. But as I said, I'm in my acceptance speech. I'm very dependent upon my assistants because I don't know a gigabyte from a horseshoe, and I called all my assistants my kids. And they are very helpful. They've been very helpful for me all down through the ages. As a matter of fact, I just had breakfast with my current kid, and she understands. I mean, that's the focus of an assistant. The focus of an assistant is technological, and also keeping track of everything that I would tend to lose. But I'm a little anal retentive. I don't tend to throw things around and lose them. But without an assistant, I would be way behind. I couldn't function.
What advice would you give to an aspiring editor today?
Work for free. That's the simplest thing I could say. Try and cut anything you can. Go to the American Film Institute and see if there's well, first of all, you have to learn what you're doing. So you have to go to school. You have to learn, although I personally feel that college courses in editing are not directly applicable to the actual job when you get there, but nonetheless, you should have some sort of piece of paper that said you were studying to be an editor. I think the American Film Institute is a great thing. If you can get in there for graduate work, that's wonderful. If you can find through there or through anywhere you can somebody who is willing to take you on board as a intern, take it. Work for free. The union frowns on that. I've had a couple of interns. I'm liable to get arrested for saying this because the union is going to say it. But I've had a couple of people who have worked with me for free. I don't give them big jobs that would put an assistant or an apprentice out of a job. In other words, it's not a one-to-one trade. I don't have my apprentice or my intern doing all the work that I would have an apprentice doing. But just hanging around the cutting room, doing a few things, learning, looking over my shoulder, picking up information here and there is a great help. And eventually, in a lot of places, the interns are so good that the producers feel guilty by not paying them, so they pay them. And then they're in the union. Then they get in. Then they can get in, But after a certain period of time, I don't understand the rules anymore about how to get in or not get in the union, I'm a little beyond that as far as age is concerned,
This week you were honored by ACE with your Lifetime Achievement Award. Talk about that experience, what that means to you.
Well, it was exciting to me, very exciting to me. It was the most exciting experience since I've won the Academy Award. I was less nervous than when I won the Academy Award because I knew it was coming. I was called months ago to be told that it was, it's like the Irving Thalberg Award. You know ahead of time so you can prepare a speech. And to be able to get, as I said at the time, it was really cool to be able to get my favorite actor, my favorite director, and my favorite producer all to introduce me and to present the award to me. This is Morgan Freeman and Phil Alden Robinson, and Mace Neufeld. They all were in my corner, and that was a great feeling. I was able to have my whole family there. I had a free table for 12, which was wonderful, and we even had 16 people. So my agency volunteered four more seats at their table so that I could sit everybody, and it was a great party. It was great fun.
What about ACE itself? What do you think the importance of the organization is?
ACE, I think, I knew one of the founding members of ACE. I worked with him as an assistant. Warren Lowe was his name. And they started out as a sort of social organization for film editors to get together and kind of share experiences and have a good time. And in that regard, I think it's wonderful. And it's improved so much in offering student awards and things of that nature, training for students. I think that's terrific. I can't think of anything that the ACEs do wrong that they shouldn't be doing, and I feel honored to be a member, and it's awful nice to have ACE behind your name, you know. ACE. Sounds good. Most people don't know what it means any more than ASC for camera people, but it looks important on the screen anyway. But I enjoy my friendships that I've made in ACE. But unfortunately, I live 200 miles from here, so I don't mingle a lot, you know. But that's about it. I think it's a good organization.
What do you think is the highlight of your career?
Well, I had a friend who died recently, Dom DeLuise, who said one time, he's a very funny man, and he said, if you ever find $1 million in a purple elevator, you'll never use an escalator. Or $1 million in a purple elevator, you'll never get into a green one, is what he said. And that's what I feel about my best. The thing is, Dances with Wolves, I found $1 million in Dances with Wolves. I got my Academy Award. And for that reason, and for another reason, Dances with Wolves was a very familial kind of movie. Not a family movie, not meaning, you know, G-rated, but that the people who worked on the movie felt like a family. We gave each other Indian names. We all played around with each other out on location. We had softball tournaments. We had water ski tournaments. Kevin Costner's wife at that time was very helpful at arranging things. Like we had a night at a bowling alley. We had a night at a pool hall. She always was throwing parties. My Indian name, by the way, was Over the Hill. So, and that was 20 years ago. So now I guess my Indian name would be Dead Meat, something like that.
Well, that's pretty much concludes it. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
You're quite welcome.
Okay.